All right. So it looks like we left off with the face. And you might have touched up on a few details, maybe a little more on the eyeshadow, a little more of the different shading there, depending on what your skin tone was, how dark or how light you wanted it, etc., etc. So I know it's been a long weekend. I'm going to try to do a part 5 tomorrow, but I have a pretty full day, so no promises, but I am going to get the hands and the arms done and work on this little bit of the neck right here today. So I want you to start with 943, and just let me grab these really quick. I'll give you a color list real fast of the colors we're going to use on the hands and arms, which are similar. Some are similar, but they are a little bit different because we're not adding pink tones to like the cheeks and stuff. So you got white, you got 943, 1068, 140, 1092, 927, and maybe some 1084. I may add in a deeper shade. We'll just have to wait and see, especially around this neck area. So let's start with our 943. And hopefully I'm in your view there. And because Lana has put in really deep shading around the neck, that's why I chose this 943 instead of 945 to start. And we're just going to put a really light layer. Now, normally, if I was using a toned paper or a colored paper, I would probably start with white or light peach and put an undercoat or what some people call underpainting. And I would try to lighten up that really deep shading here. But her hands are providing good blocking from the light. So I'm just going to kind of try to run with that and see what happens. We're going to see how this comes out. Hopefully it's not too dark, but no promises because I didn't sit down and practice this out. So I don't know what's going to happen here. And if you have an inkjet printer like me, you know, sometimes that grayscale can smear a little bit, especially if you got some toothy paper like I do. So I'm just kind of putting a light layer over a lot of the shaded area and right around the base of the chin there. And then I'm a little bit around this bottom of the fork here. So I don't want to do real heavy. And then I am going to grab my 927 and I'm going to kind of go in the little white areas that I didn't cover with the 943 up top there, just a little bit. And then right in that center white bit. I want to fill that in first. Just a light coat, don't go heavy. Now I'm going to come up and I'm going to kind of use my 927 to blend that 943. The reason I put some in the center first, the white area, is so I don't drag too much of my 943 into that lighter point. It is going to blend into it a little bit, but I don't want to blend too much. And again, I'm doing a really light, small circles over that 943. And it is going to kind of give it a muddy look because you got that gray shading under there. And that's all right. We'll come back and add some more shading to that after we get this layer in. So what I'm trying to do is keep the light and the dark so that you can see it's part of her neck and not just a big blob. I mean, worst case scenario, you could fill it in with a color like it's part of her shirt or an undershirt. But I definitely think she intended this to be part of the skin. So I'm trying my best here to get this just right. Boy, it's loud outside today. Sun comes out and people lose their minds, start driving on my street like it's a racetrack. It's 30 miles per hour on my road. It's a neighborhood, so I don't know why people think they can drive like lunatics around here. They crash all the time because they go off the embankment into the wetland. It's like, you'll be kidding me. And of course, then they don't understand. It's like we're just looking at them like, whatever. I'm going to take my white, and right in that center, I'm just going to pale down that 927 just a little bit. Not a lot. I just kind of want to work it a little bit. Again, I'm not doing a heavy coat of the white. I do want to tone out that light peach just a little lighter, but only in the light area. And then I'm going to go up around that spoon. There's those little bits of light just underneath the shading of her neck. So you can see I'm just adding a little bit just to give it some contrast there. Again, I don't want to do a real thick coat of this white. I'm just doing a little bit to kind of tone down my light peach. I always say there's exceptions to using your white as a blending agent. And there always is. But I try not to use it unless I absolutely have to. Okay, now take your 140 and kind of brighten up that shaded area with your 140. That's your eggshell. So it's got a little bit of a yellow in it. So blending with that 943, you should get a little bit of that peachy tone with that 943 when you add this eggshell. And you can go over your light peach a little bit because you're going to kind of want to blend that. And you'll see that that color starts to look more like a bright peachy skin color, but it's not overwhelming. So you can see your shaded areas coming in. And I still have that little center bit that's white. Again, I'm just working that little portion here around the neck. And once you finish your hands and your shirt, you may find you need to come back in and add some more shading or some more dramatic effects. And I like to do that in the end, as you know. If you've watched some of my color alongs, you notice that I've done that. Okay, I'm going to take my 943 again, right around that chin. Somebody's fighting outside. I can hear them yelling. I'm just going to put a little bit more of that 943 right in some of the deeper shaded areas. So right under the chin. Again, I'm not doing a whole lot, but it is giving that nice shaded look that I'm after. Keeping with what the artist has already put in there. Trying not to do too much. I don't know who's arguing out there. You know, the sun comes out, people start acting like fools. And I'm going to put a little right in between that collar. Okay, now I am going to grab my, I think I'll grab my eggshell and go over the edges to blend that just a little better. So I got my eggshell going. And you could definitely see where I added the shading. Even though there's still some really dark shading underneath, there's not much you can do about that unless you're going to use something underneath to white that out. And that's still going to be really hard to do. I guess you could use something like gesso or something like that. I don't like to use that stuff. There. So you could put a little more white right in that center, that highlight right in the middle of her neck there, if you want to brighten it up. But you see you still got the shading here, and then down around her hand here, and a little bit around the fork. So however you want to kind of manipulate that little bit of shading there, it is going to be a tricky one, just because it is so dark. Alrighty, tidy. So we've done that. That little neck piece, that was easy. That's not a whole lot of blending, not a big area to cover. So it should have been fairly simple. Now I'm just trying to adjust my view here. So we're going to do this left arm. And I'm going to start with 943. And I'm going to go down here where her elbow is. And with a light touch, you see that there's that shading in there. What you're going to want to do is go around with your 943 and kind of go over that shading a little bit and around your edges. You're not going heavy. Again, you're just really light. Be gentle. And I know it can be hard because sometimes even I'm a little too heavy. And I know it looks dark, but it won't. It'll fade out a little bit, but you'll still see your, I guess your underpainting or your shading in there, so to say. And notice I left that little white corner on her elbow there. I did that on purpose. Now be careful around your cake. I think I decided to make it a chocolate cake with like a light strawberry filling, like a pinkish red filling. So I think we're going to make it chocolate. Like I haven't decided what color brown yet. My mind is still spinning on that. Okay. And there's a little bit of shading here around her arm. So you can see I'm just putting little bits. And this is time consuming. This is the process. Everybody does theirs just a little bit different. So however you choose to lay your colors down. The trick is to be consistent and go in the direction of the item you're coloring. So like if you're doing hair, you want to follow the hair pattern. If you're doing fur, you want to follow the fur pattern. You kind of want to keep consistent. So let me move this down a little bit. I'm going around her wrist here. And I'm highlighting like bend lines. Like if you look at your own wrist, you see the wrinkle lines where your joints are. That's what I'm trying to mimic, some of those lines, and keep with her shading that she has here. So when we get up around the fingers, that's going to be a little different. You're going to want to add some of those finger joints in. So let's see this little finger here. I'm going to go in between the fingers, and I'm basically going to outline the fingers and outline the fingernail. So I'm coming up around this finger here, just a little bit, real light. I don't want to get too dark up against my cheek there. And then where her knuckle is, I'm going to draw these little lines in. And then right up top here, a couple little dashes there. So you can see I went around the fingernail, and then I put in these little knuckle lines. So if you look at your hand, you see your wrinkles on your hand. Well, I can see mine. I don't know about you. I can see my wrinkles. Every year older I get a couple new ones. Okay, now I'm going to do this next finger. Kind of adding in some of those little lines. Keeping the fingers separated and getting around that fingernail. Okay. Do that with all your fingers. Don't forget your fingernails. And putting those little lines in. And then you got that last finger here. She'll have a little bit more shading around that last finger. And the fingernail. Oops. And those little finger lines there and right there. I think that's good. A little bit more down here. And I want to add just a hair more around the wrist area. Just to give it some more contrast here. No, my lines are not perfect. I don't know that they've ever been too perfect. And then, you know, you got your knuckles right here at the base of your finger. Those knuckles right there, kind of on your fist. So you could always put these little tiny, almost like little moons, just right there. Kind of give it that look of real digits. Okay. Now I'm going to follow this line on her arm right up against the shirt, but I'm doing it on the inside of the arm. I'm not doing it on the shirt side. And I'm just lightly kind of putting a little layer around the edge with my 943. I'm being ever so gently, trying not to get too much. And then here's that little bit here. And I am going to go around, right around the edge of the shirt here. Oops. Got a little heavy there. And right where the hand meets the skin, and the neck and the face, I'm doing a little bit. Now I'm going to reach for my nectar, which is my 1092. And again, I'm going to start down here at the elbow. And I'm going to do a light coat. And I'm going to kind of blend that 943 with my 1092. And again, I'm just keeping an ever so light coat, though. Because I want to keep the depth of the shading there. But I don't want it to get heavier as I put the nectar down. I just want to kind of give it a good balance. I mean, by all means, do your skin the way you like to do it. This is just how I do one picture, for example. And I change my colors depending on what the picture is. So again, I'm going to go up around this cake a little bit, right around the edge with my nectar. And those shading lines I have here. And right around the inside. So I'm just trying to be really careful not to go too heavy. Like I said, you can always add color in, but it's really hard to take it away. Especially if you're like me and you're using a toothier paper instead of a smoother, less toothy paper. Okay, doing that shading again around the wrist. And around the face here. I am going to get up around the fingers and the fingernail. And I am going over those little lines I put in. It just kind of gives the fingers some shape and some character when you put those little wrinkles in there, instead of just looking like straight little sticks on a page. Okay. Get this last little finger, these last two, I guess. And you know, this process, when you do it, it always looks so sloppy, right? It's that finished project that always looks the best. Hopefully this comes out like it is in my head, but sometimes it just doesn't. Okay, I'm going to take my light peach, my 927, and I'm ever so gently going to, where I have put the 943 and the nectar, I'm just going to go over that with my 927 with a light coat. I'm not burnishing. I'm not pressing hard. My pencil is short, so I'm just very lightly kind of pulling those two colors together and then pulling it up towards the white area. So you're not trying to fill in every little inch of your white space or your paper. You should just be a light coat at this point, because you're going to want to do color adjustments as you fill this arm in. So if you start going heavy right off the bat, you're going to be stuck. And you could have sharp lines, and you definitely don't want to see a sharp line. You want to try to get a nice even blended look. Again, I'm just kind of using that circular motion to kind of move that color a little bit. And you notice I'm going right to the edge, so I'm grabbing onto that 943 and that nectar. And I'm smoothing that out a little bit. But of course, you know, like I said, a light touch. I'm not getting crazy. And I'm not going to fill in the whole arm. I'm going to leave a little really light area, like where the light's directly hitting her underarm there, or forearm, I guess. Going around the cake and around the shaded area here. So you should still be able to see your shading that the artist had put in there to begin with, that gray. And now I'm going to go in this little space here, going right around that edge. Trying not to get too heavy. Sometimes it's hard though, especially when you're working with really short pencil. I have a full length one next to me. I want to use this guy up. Okay. I'm going to do this all over the entire arm and the hands. So I want to work on this arm bit before I get up in the hands, though. Because there's those details in the hands. And I don't want to lose those details. Okay, go back to this side, working from the edge inward. Again, I'm not doing anything fancy that you can't do at home. I'm just doing little circles. Just kind of moving that color around it, mixing the colors together. And with a baby touch. So it's just barely putting color on the page. But it is putting color on the page, you can tell. So it goes from white to that peachy color. And you could definitely feel it when your pencil is touching that paper because it feels kind of scratchy. You could feel the tooth of the paper. Okay, I'm just working my way down. I'm going to work a little bit more right here because it's still pretty dark. So I can still see some of that 943, and I want to kind of mix those with each other. So that's why I jumped back down there. Okay, I'm going to work my way up. This is the part where it's like, oh boy, it takes so long, but it's so worth it if you're patient. And I know some people just want to sit down and color. And then there's people that just want to learn different techniques and how to do different things to make their pictures really come to life. I say do however you want. If you like to just scribble on a page, just scribble on a page. Doesn't matter. You should never compare yourself to what other people are capable of, because if I did that, shoot, I would consider myself not very good at all. I see some people that do these fabulous pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. You would think that they took a photo and that they didn't do it with colored pencil. It's crazy. I've seen some really cool pictures. I'm just kind of going around those lines that I put in, those highlighted areas. Okay, now I'm going to get around the palm here. And I'm working that color inward towards the top of her hand in small circles. You should be able to go right over those little lines you drew, those little shape lines, without it actually blending it away, because you're not pushing real hard right now. If you notice your lines are disappearing, it's probably because you're pushing too hard. So I'm just going to do this all the way up the hand. Almost like you're filling in the whole entire thing with a really light coat of this light peach. And you notice you left that space right here on the arm a little white. So to about right here. You should have a nice little strip of untouched. so to say. Okay. Back to the fingers. You can see where I accidentally had some pencil lines on here because I dropped pencils. I hate it when I do that and then they leave a big mark. You're like, oh gosh. So, funny story. Okay, some of you might have saw my Facebook post. So I'm out in my garage just tinkering around last night. And this mouse, I'm not kidding you, a mouse walks right up to my foot, looks at me, and squeaks at me like, hey, how you doing? I'm just staring at this thing. I didn't freak out or scream. I'm just staring at it like, excuse me, what are you doing in my garage? And how did you get in? I'm guessing it's because I had my door open and I was watering my plants outside. I have these little shrubs by my driveway, and sometimes the mice like to hide in there from the sun. And I was watering them, so I'm guessing there was one in there and he just ran into my open garage. He'd probably been in there all day looking for a way to get out. And so I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This little guy is gonna get in my house. So I open the garage door for a while, try to shoo him out. He doesn't go out. I'm thinking, dude, this is your last chance. You either go out or you're going to get taken out. And, you know, I didn't want to kill it, but he just wasn't cooperating. So I set my little trap with some peanut butter and granola, and I went to bed. A couple hours later, I checked it before I actually went to bed, but Fred the second hadn't visited the trap yet. So I get up this morning. I decide I'm going to go look before I make some coffee. See if he likes peanut butter and granola. And sure, he did. He liked peanut butter and granola. He was in the trap. He was no longer alive. I unalived the little guy. I know, I'm sorry for those of you who are freaking out right now. I live on a wetland. So I get all kinds of critters. And I don't dare bother or hurt the critters unless they come into my house. You must be inside my home, and then it's game over. Then we're having words. But it's a mouse. It's a dirty, icky little field mouse, and they carry all kinds of ickiness. And they poop and they pee everywhere and on everything. So if you're not aware of how mice are, and if you didn't grow up in the country, you probably are thinking, oh, they're so cute. Well, they're only cute until they get into your home and start chewing through your walls and pooping and peeing on things and getting to your pantry. Yeah, mice are cute for a minute. So anyways, Fred the second had been unalived. I just shut the door, came back in, had to get some coffee before I could go deal with Fred the second. And yes, it did bother me a little bit. I wasn't happy, but I'm glad he is out of my garage. And I set several traps last night, so you'll be happy to know only one was triggered, so he was a random mouse. So, I know, isn't that awful? But it stinkered. I didn't want him in my home, and at least he didn't make it past my garage door into my kitchen. Okay, now take your white. In that little area in the center that we left, I want you to put a really light coat of white there. So this little bit of white that you're putting in there, when your pencil hits it, you'll feel it. So when you do another layer, you're going to know that that white layer is there. And you're just a gentle coat. Don't get crazy. Don't put a lot of pressure. I like to do this because it lets me know to keep that space a little bit lighter. That way I'm not getting too crazy. And then I have this little bit right here that I'm just going to put a little bit of white in, and then right around her elbow, the bottom there, where her elbow's sitting on the table. Just a smidget. And then right here on her hand, I'm going to put a little bit of white. Not a whole lot. We are going to use our white more, because I said there's always exceptions when you blend with white. White is a great way to tone down colors. It's not ideal as a blender unless your goal is to tone your colors out. Okay, so now I'm going to take my 140, which is my eggshell, and I'm going to come down here at the bottom. And with another light coat, I'm just going to kind of blend all these colors I laid. But again, I'm still using a light coat. I'm not burnishing yet because I usually, after this stage, I'll make adjustments. So whether I need to put some more of the 943, some more of the nectar, I kind of make my adjustments at this point. So I'm just doing this light coating, and it is going to kind of change it from a peachy to kind of a peachy yellow because the eggshell has got some yellow in it. And you'll notice around the areas that have that shading that the artist put in, it may look a little muddy. We will be adding some more details around that to try to edge that out, that muddiness. And it is really hard when they do that. Grayscale is great, but grayscale can be really difficult if you're using blending techniques. It can easily go from looking really cool to looking like a hot mess when you blend colors. I'm not a fan of heavy grayscale, but I have done some grayscale images that have come out really good. I'm going to go over that white area just a little bit because I'm trying to get the edge where I put some of that peachy color. Okay. Now when my pencil starts to get towards that white, I can feel it. So when my eggshell gets near that white, I can definitely feel it, and I'm stopping because I don't want to run over it with my eggshell. Not yet anyway. That was kind of why I put that white in there. So I know, hey, stop right there. Otherwise, I get a little too carried away and I lose my light points. Okay, again, I'm just kind of, with a light touch, adding in this layer. And I know you look at your face and think, oh, they're not the same color. Well, they're going to be really close to the same color. Now, keep in mind, because she's got pink cheeks, it's not going to be identical to the face. I mean, is your face color the same as your arm color? No. Because your arms are exposed to the elements all the time, the sun. You wear makeup if you're a lady. I guess I shouldn't say that. It doesn't matter anymore if you're a boy or a girl. People wear makeup all the time. But if you're one of those that wears makeup, you know that your arm and your face don't always match. So within tone or shade is what I say is within reason. So again, I'm just kind of going over what's already there, adding that nice light layer. And it's giving it kind of that peachy, yellowy skin tone. Basically the same skin tone we had in the face until we started adding in our pinks and our more fleshy colors. Okay, I'm going to do that shading area here. Trying not to blend too much, because again, you got those dark shades underneath there. That black ink from my inkjet printer will get mushed around really easy, and I'm trying to avoid making that muddy look. And I think that's what happened with my left eye up there. I blended a little too much, and I kind of got the ink from the printer not cooperating with me. Okay, going right over those lines that I drew in there. Let me move my page here. And if you have a piece of parchment or glassine paper, you could always put it over this area if you're rubbing. When you drag your hand across your colored image, it'll start to fade that color out. So I usually have a piece of parchment paper or something, so I don't do that. Okay, I'm doing that around the edge here. Just going to kind of fill this in, and I'm watching for that center part where I put that white, and I can kind of feel it under my pencil. Because I didn't go real heavy with my white, so... See if I can get some more of these lines kind of blended out a little bit. There we go. It's a little better. Okay, now I'm going to go up here around the finger. And I'm just kind of going over the whole entire fingers. Right over my little lines. And you can see my lines are kind of staying put now. And that's what you want. You shouldn't be blending them away. They're probably going to fade out a little bit as you start to get your final blends in there. And that's kind of what you want. You want to still be able to see them through what you're doing. But you don't want to blend them totally away. Because that was the whole point, was putting them in there, was to add some detail. To make them look like real fingers, right? I'm just hitting these edges and then up around the finger and fingernail. I'm going to do this on all my fingers. Again, I'm not pushing hard. I'm actually using a light touch. I'm just filling in and blending with those edges. Don't worry, we'll paint her fingernails. So we'll give her some colorful fingernails. I'm thinking I might use some of this blingy paint that I got from KJ Designs. And I put her link for the paints in my description of this video. So if you're interested in getting your mittens on some of them, go for it. I know they can be a little expensive, but trust me, they're worth it. They're so pretty. And the shipping was really fast. Like, I ordered them, and I think I had them within a week. I was like, whoa, that came quick. Which I was excited about. So I had to get me a little palette to put them in. And, of course, because KJ overfills her little half pans, the lid on my watercolor palette won't close all the way, so it means I have to use them. I'm not complaining. Extra's always good. But just so you know, you are getting your money's worth when you order from her, more than overfilled. And I love that. She doesn't skimp when she fills her little half pans or her whole pans. And I ordered a couple different ones. So now, of course, I want more. I'm like, oh boy. Now I'm going to start buying paints and I'm not a painter, but I like to use the blingy details. Again, I'm just refining this area where I put that white. I'm kind of just going around it a little bit. So, as you can see now, if you look, you have that portion of her arm right here where it should be shaded, because that kind of gives it that muscle definition. You got around the elbow here, around your edge. And then you've got some wrist markings. So however you did your wrist and your finger markings, I'm just going to hit some more of these little spots. So we're not done yet, but you can you should be able to still see your details pretty good where you've put those beginning colors, so to say. Right? You should get some nice fine aspects here. I'm looking at that edge. I missed this little spot right here. And that's kind of what you're after. So, because when you blend over it, because you put 927 down first, so when you go back and put your 140, it kind of keeps you from blending it completely away. Excuse me. Okay, so now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1092 again, and I'm going to kind of put a little bit the nectar in my darkest areas. So that's that fleshy tone color. So I just want to put a little bit more in certain areas. So now is a really good time to adjust your color tones or your shades. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of going over certain little spots that I want to put just a little bit more of that nectar in. I'm not getting too crazy. Maybe right in here between the fingers a little bit. Just to give it some more. Okay. And I think I'll take my white and do a little more on that center bit here. Again, I'm just adding a little bit in there. And right around this upper palm, the top of, I guess, the top of the palm of her hand or the top of her hand. Maybe around these fingers a little bit. Nothing real fancy dancy, just a little. And then these lines right here. And of course this one down at the bottom here and around that elbow. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Don't you? I think so. Can you see that? Am I in your view? Okay, I'm going to take my 927 and I'm going to apply a light layer of my 927 using the small circular motion as I'm blending. I'm not pushing hard, but I am blending a little bit more. So I'm blending those colors. I am going over that white area down below because it's still, even though it's white, it's just going to put enough of that 927 over that white to keep the uplight there, but also make it look more of a flesh tone instead of a bright white. So all I'm doing is blending these colors. Again, I'm not doing anything that's complicated, I don't think. Light touch. I'm not pushing hard. If you're a heavy pressure type person and you get a lot of hand fatigue, learning light touch is really going to help you. And there's, again, I've learned that there's different depths of light touch. So learning your light touch technique and the small circular motion is really going to help you because it's going to help you fill in that page better without working so hard to do it. So without your poor hands getting so achy and tired. And again, you're going to see me go over this white area. Because I put that white pencil in there, it's going to be a peach tone, but it's going to be a different tone of peach. It's going to be a little lighter and paler. So again, I'm just kind of working this side right now. I'm just blending and blending and blending. And you may have to do a couple coats of the 927, and that's okay. Depends on how light of a touch you have. I usually need to do 2 or 3 passes with my different layers. So once I do this, then I'm going to look and see where I'm at and make any adjustments I need to make before I actually go in and try to burnish the area. Because again, once you do that, it's really hard to put more color in. Again, I'm just working the edges and I'm working the layers of the color. Kind of rotate my pencil. I like to turn my pencils. Otherwise, you get a really sharp, unwanted edge, but it's also a good way to keep a sharp tip for longer, is constantly rotating your pencils as you're using them. Again, you can see how I just went over that white area. Even though it still looks probably bright white on camera, it's not. It's more of a fleshy tone. But white is a great pencil to do those things with. You can leave your undercolor there and go over it lightly and it'll still look pale. You can also put pencil down and then scrape it off, and whatever design you put underneath with your white pencil should still be there. A little trick. Okay, I'm going to blend this wrist area a little. And that shading that's in there, it's so dark. So you can see what I mean, where it still kind of looks a little muddy. But that's because that dark shading underneath. And we can come back in there with some different pencils and try to tone that out a little bit. But it's going to be really hard with the grayscale. So don't get upset if you see that on yours. I think I was trying on my face, I forgot those little bits of that grayscale were in the corners of the eyebrows, and I was trying to work it away, and I ended up working it too hard. And it just kind of muddied certain parts. I was like, well, that'll learn me. I forget where the artist had put some grayscale shading. Again, I'm going over that white area. Even though it still looks white, it's actually a pale tone of peach. I'm going to do those fingers. I'm going to do each individual finger, and I'm working around the edge right now. And around those fingernails, I'm trying to avoid filling those fingernails in. For now. Trying to decide what color I want to do. Do I want red fingernails with some bling on them? I want to do that. Maybe I'll do a red fingernail and then put little bits of metallic bling on them. That might be pretty. Okay, I'm going to come down here. All right, looking pretty good, I think. Again, I'm just going over what I already did. Just going over it again. Like I said, you may need to add a couple layers of your light peach depending on how light your touch is. Just kind of getting around my edges here a little bit. Okay. I'm thinking that's looking pretty snappy. So maybe I'm going to take my 140 and see where I get when I put a layer of my 140 over my peach. I'm going to start down here just to see what tone I get. Because this will kind of tell me where I'm at as I'm blending this a little bit. And this eggshell is going to be a really good when you're blending. And when you start putting this eggshell in, you're going to start burnishing your paper. So keep that in mind when you put it in, how heavy of a pressure you want to go. Because if you still think you might need to make some adjustments, just do a light blend. Give yourself enough leeway that if you want to add more shading somewhere or details, that you can. So I'm going to do around here and see. Because I do have some other color options that I pulled. And I think I told you in the beginning. I have a few tricks up my sleeve. So you see I'm going over that white area. Even though it still looks really pale. It's because you got those colors that you put underneath. I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. And it's really close to your actual face color. But that 140 really brightens it up and just gives all those colors a nice, good blend. Yeah. I'm thinking that's looking kind of what I want. Might add some more details here in a minute. I'm going to blend this out. I'm lightly blending these out so I can see if I could add some more fine details where I need to. And you can see my uplight is still there. And I'm going to go right over it. And it is still there. So it did what I wanted it to do. Let me get up here in this wrist, and it's kind of the make it or break it is that wrist point, because that dark shading under there really gets me. I want to fix it. I want to be like, how come it looks like that? But there's not much you can do when it's the ink on the page. You can try to white it out beforehand, but that's up to you. Again, I don't like to change the artist drawings too much by whiting out what they've put in there. I like to leave it as is. And then just try to work around it. See if I could blend these. You can see I'm just working that white area. What do you think so far? Not that you could talk back to me, but I mean, you could. Maybe I could read minds today. But anyways, after the whole mouse adventure, okay, So then I come inside before, I mean, this was a while before I actually go to bed, but I come inside and I sit down and Gretel's in a mood. She's all of a sudden got the zoomies all spunkied out. And she starts attacking the corner of my couch. I'm like, what has got into you? And she knows better. She never attacks my furniture. And so she's sitting there looking at me, her tail's going, and I can see the look in her eyes like she knows what she's doing. And I tell her to knock it off, and then she reaches up and grabs the couch. And then I go to get up and shoo her away. And she jumps up and she smacks my leg and takes off. I don't think I got it in the video that I posted that she actually smacked me when she took off running as I scattered her away from clawing my couch. She's such a little heathen. But you can just tell by the look on her face that she was in play mode. And she's so funny. She looks way bigger on camera, too, than she really is. But she is a little chubbers. She's not overweight, though. She's a good weight. I think it's just that breed of cat she is. Spunky little monster. Okay. Can you see the arm really good? The hand? Okay. So you can see how the skin tone is almost identical. It's not perfect. But I'm going to take my 1068. And I'm going to kind of work those light areas, giving a little of the 1068 here. Just putting a little bit of that fleshy gray. I can come back in here with my white. Just going to give it a different look here. Kind of working some of these shaded areas a little bit. Because you got to remember, it's still a gray. So you're still going to get some of that gray effect. Trying to even this out a little bit here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to because it's the ink underneath. Whatever. Yeah, let me see if I can take my 1084. Kind of give that little more. Like I said, I had a couple little tricks up my sleeve with some different colors. I told you at the beginning. Some good color to mix and blend with. To kind of work those funky shades. Yep. 1084 is definitely going to give you a more yellow or olive skin tone. So I'm just kind of going over the really sharp contrast lines here with it. And then I will add some nectar, I think. We shall see. And again, I like to add all my fine details at the very end. But by all means, if you want to do it now, you can. So I don't fault anybody for things like that. I like to come back and, add more of my shading, my final touches when I polish off my picture at the end. So again, I'm just kind of putting a little of this 1084 in here. Just giving it that nice contrast I was looking for. I just couldn't get with my 140. Yep. Kind of what I needed. Okay, let me see my nectar. I need to sharpen it. Nice sharp point. I'm just kind of really carefully going to go around these fingernails. Kind of giving that the edges of work right along the face there. Yep. Go around my fingernails. Okay. I think I want to kind of do this differently here along this edge. That white, I think, along that edge was throwing me for a loop. Okay. Work that neck a little bit there with that nectar. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. I want to put a little more of this nectar in here, though. Too much of a contrast between the face and the hand. So adding a little more of the nectar in. Because I didn't burnish my page, I'm able to do this. So hopefully you didn't burnish your page. That's why I like to work in light layers, because like I said, when you need to make color adjustments, it's going to be really hard if you've got too light or too dark. All I'm doing is adding just a little more of a tan or pink to the skin color, even though, like I said, it doesn't have to be spot on, because your face usually always never matches your arm color. But you want it to be close. I am a little more off than I would like to be. So I'm just going to come in and put a little more of this nectar in here to try to balance it a little bit better. Again, I'm just very lightly putting in a little bit. I'm not adding a whole lot. Then I'm going to blend that with my 927, I think. Okay, put a little more. Going along the edge here. Little more of this flesh tone. And I think that's definitely what it needed. Just a little bit more of those. This isn't one of my better skins, but it's definitely one that you can change accordingly. So darker, lighter, depending on what you're after. Okay. I'm going to grab my 927 and see what I get. Should be pretty good. looking pretty close to my face color now. That's more what I wanted. Perfect. You can see it changed it just a little bit, and now it's more peachy. That nectar gave it just enough of a flesh tone that I was after. So I'm just going in the fingers here. Give it just enough, and I think that came out really good. Made me happy. Perfect. Cool beans. Okay, now you can see I'm just kind of giving an overall blend with my 927. Kind of just getting that flesh tone to come out. Since I added the nectar in there, I want to really mix that nectar in. Get around my edge here. That looks much better. And that's good because I'm not going to get much more color on this page. I could feel my paper's just about reached its limit. And I can see I'm getting some peeling or some what you guys call pencil dust. And that's usually your red flag. Unless you like to press hard, then you'll get pencil dust all the time. But when I'm working in light layers and I start to see pencil dust, that's usually my signal that my page is about burned. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to take my white. I'm just going to kind of smooth the edges there. Where I had that little bit of light, I'm just smoothing the flesh tone so it doesn't look like such a sharp edge. Because it's just really just a little line there of white. It's not a big, thick line. So I'm just kind of smoothing that out a little bit. You can see I put that little bit in there. Just a little around the fingers. But for the most part, what do you see in there? I know it looks way different on camera, especially at this angle. But it's looking pretty good. We're going to move over to her other side, I think. I might burnish this a little bit better because I can see where I need to work that color. And that's going to take me a hot minute to do it. I think that's one of the more time-consuming things is when you really start to burnish your page. And that's gonna be about it for me for adding and adjusting. Yep. I'm gonna have to do some touch-ups, but like I said, we will come back in the very end after we filled everything in. And I like to do my details at the end, my really tiny, intricate detail work. I like to put at the end or make adjustments, shading, whatnot, because when you see the whole picture together, you can kind of see a little bit better where you can tweak some things. So I know I could put some more shading in between the fingers, but I'm going to wait. Like I said, I want to do that in the very end. Probably right before I do the background, I will add that. So we're going to take a quick little break, and I will come back and we will do the right arm. So stand by. Okay, so I had a quick little break. Not that you care. Gretel's being good for a minute. We're going to do this right arm and hand here. And we're going to do exactly the same thing that we did on this side. And we're just going to build up our layers, starting with our 943. So, actually, my little ear here could use some more details, huh? Again, I keep looking at things. I'm like, I know I always do my details in the end, but sometimes things catch my eyeball. Okay, so we're pretty much just going to do the same thing that we did before. On the left hand, we're going to follow the shading, which Lana has made it pretty easy for you to do, because she has added some subtle shading in there. Some of that grayscale shading, which is nice. Now, here comes Gretel. She's behind me attacking my chair. She's such a little monster. She was being good all day, and now she wants to be a heathen because I'm not paying attention to her. Because that's what she does. Can't help but love her, though. But yeah, so I had the little mouse incident last night. Then Gretel decided to go silly on me and attack my furniture. And then I forgot the last part. I got up this morning and there was a big old spider right above my head. I was like, are you serious? What is this, wild kingdom in my house? I'm like, good Lord. And again, I live right on a wetland. So I get all kinds of creatures. There's coyotes. There's wild rabbits, which are so cute when they have little babies. I always put some greens out for them. Like if I have salad that's getting ready to go, or spinach, I'll put some extra greens out for them. And they don't always eat everything I put out. So I take it they don't like it, or they know what's good for them and what's not good for them. They don't ever really eat too many carrots. And the funny thing is, they don't really like carrots. But they like some of the other greens that I put out. They like dandelions, clover. So when the guys mow my grass, they put the clippings out for them. And they just love those fresh grass clippings. So does the deer. So I got deer, I got coyote, I got wolf. There's a random bear every now and then that comes down. And it seems to always be the females that come down here. And I think the reason they come down is there's a salmon spawning creek. So they come down to go fishing, and they come down to have their babies where it's a little safer. So the wolf pack that comes down here and visits in the springtime, spring to early fall, they come around, and they're coming out of the pack that's just north of me, which people always say, oh, there's no wolves around here. I'm like, yes, there are. And then I post a picture of them. They're like, oh, yeah, that's a wolf. I'm like, no kidding. And we get, like I said, the random black bear. I love it when people in the neighborhood post predator alerts on the Ring camera system for the neighborhood watch, and they freak out over the coyotes. I'm like, I'm not sure if you realize where you live, but yeah, when you live in the country, you're going to get that. And now that people are pushing housing so far up into the country and into the mountains, they're just displacing the wildlife. So you're going to have to learn how to live with them. But I got bald eagle. There's heron. The heron are really cool. And those giant pileated woodpeckers. Once in a while, they'll grace me with their presence when I see one of those awesome pileated woodpeckers. If you think bald eagles are big, The pileated woodpecker looks like Woody Woodpecker. He'll freak you out when he lands in your yard. First time I had one land in my yard, he was after the cherries. They love cherries. And he squawked at me so loud, made me jump. It was quite comical. So you can see here, I'm just going around the thumb. Kind of add in just a little bit of that 943. I am going to put these little knuckle marks in here, I think. Yep. And then a little bit right there. So that's her upper one. And then I think I'll do a little shading here. And on that corner right there. My sinuses are still being bad. It's not quite got into the 80s here yet. Some mid 70s. So it's not too bad. But we're getting a late start to summer, which it's not unusual. Some years we get summer early. This year it seems like the cooler weather is prevailing. But the wicked storms on the East Coast, wow. And in Texas, I've been watching that. That's crazy. Which makes me wonder what's going to happen this fall if we're going to get our typical bad windstorms that we get. I mean, I've seen windstorms here where it's taken people's roofs off. And here, because we have such big trees, the windstorms here will knock a tree down and the whole entire root ball comes up with it. So if that gives you an idea, and you're not talking about hurricanes here, but just wind, crazy wind. And the wind here, when it gusts, you get these gusts, and along with all this rain, and it's just terrible. The soil gets soft, we get landslides. It's scary sometimes. But a good windstorm here, yeah, that'll put some hair on your chest if you're afraid of storms. So you got to kind of expect the power outages for a couple days, especially if it's really bad. But having a late start to summer like this usually means our fall is going to come in early, and it's going to come in with a vengeance. Our fall is usually not very long, and neither is our summer. We're lucky if we get 2 months of summer. It's kind of like Alaska, but a little bit longer. We're not as cold, but still. Okay, so I added some of this 943, kind of where I want a little bit of it. I'm going a little bit lighter on this side because this side seems to be more direct light. Oops, I'm going to go around that fingernail right here. I might give her some blingy gold fingernails. What do you think? I got this beautiful blingy paint from KJ Designs. So I got these wonderful colors here. Look, I got 4. And look at all the extra room I got. I could buy more. So I'm thinking green and red and blue. I need to have a rainbow of colors now. So they could be a little spendy, but as you can see, I can't close my lid because she fills them so full. It's worth the money. But I'm sure I will use them, and then my lid will close. Then I'll be bummed because I used them. So now I'm going to grab my nectar. It's a 1092. And I'm going to go in and put some light layers in here over that 943. I'm getting in between my strawberry leaf here. Just kind of going around the the leaf a little bit. And again, this is kind of my underpainting or my base layer that I'm laying in here, which gives me an idea of where I'm going to go with this. And again, it's one of those things, it's like, do your picture how you like. I just like to do it this way, slow and steady. Then I know where I need to put more color, less color. And it helps me determine if I'm getting too dark in a certain area, or if I need to add more light. So kind of these wrist lines here. I hear the traffic out there. It's like, again, it's kind of warm today. It was about 75. Not too bad. But sun comes out around here and people get squirrely because they haven't seen it in so long. All the loud cars come out. And again, my road is 30 miles an hour, but people like to rip down it like it's a freaking racetrack. We've had a lot of wrecks on this road because there's like an 8-foot drop off from the road to the wetland. And I think people make the mistake of thinking that there's a hard edge there and it's a soft edge. The city put no parking signs. They've done everything, but people still launch their vehicles right off into the wetland. It never fails. The one year, the guy, I don't know, I think he was drunk, almost put his truck through the neighbor's front window. I was like, well, geez. He hit a parked car because the car was actually parked illegally on the side of the road. But I don't know exactly what happened with that. I think his insurance company was trying to say it was his fault. And I'm like, well, it should be both people's fault technically because the guy was parked illegally. He shouldn't have been parked where he was parked. There's city no parking signs. But it doesn't matter. People don't care. And I think sometimes the insurance company just doesn't care. It's like, what's the point of putting those up if people aren't going to follow the rules? And then if they're not going to enforce the rules, they're there for your safety because there's school bus stops out here. There's little kids. And the way people drive and the way they park, the one kid was street racing and launched his vehicle up onto the sidewalk, totaled it, wrapped it around a tree, came within inches of hitting a group of people who were walking on the sidewalk. And we're all like, good grief. He was just a high school kid trying to act cool. Had one of those Mustangs, thinking he was just some smart-mouthed little kid with, a year of driving experience, if even that. I don't know what happened to him. I know his car got towed, but I don't know if he got reckless driving or what he got. He should have because he was street racing. Not one neighbor around here stood up for him either. They're like, yep, he was racing his car up and down the street. Because he was. And the people that live here are tired of it. It's a neighborhood. It's not an intersection or a highway. Okay, let's take our 927 and start to kind of give ourselves a light coat of that 927 here. Give us an idea of where we're at. We're not going to have as much shading as we did on the left arm. Although there's still shading here, it's just not going to be as heavy in places because there's more light on this side. So I'm just putting down a simple light coat, going over my lines like we did before. Again, I'm not pressing hard. I'm just kind of building my layer here, trying to keep with my shading, but it's a very light layer. And as you saw on the left arm, you will get a good blend after you get your layers built up pretty good. But for now, we just kind of want to get an idea of where this color is going before you put too much in at once. Because it's easier to correct with a light coat than it is to put a full-on heavy coat and then try to remove it. Removing it from the fibers of the paper is the most difficult part. And Scotch tape, removable Scotch tape, is the best to try to do that with. If it's not removable Scotch tape, you'll just tear your paper. Painter's tape, it's a type of masking tape that works really well because it's removable as well. Frog tape seems to work pretty good. I use a sand eraser, but most of your colored pencil erasers have some form of grit in them. But again, you're going to want to be really careful with that because you can easily overdo it. I had an electric eraser, but I gave it to my sister because she uses it more than I would. Electric erasers are good, but again, if you hold it on the paper too long, you'll just damage the tooth of your paper. So they do take some finesse, and they also work in a circular motion. So you want to be careful with your electric erasers as they can actually put a hole right through your paper. I always tell people you might want to practice using that before you actually apply it to a picture you're working on, because you won't be happy when it ruins your image. I'm just going along the edge here of her arm. I know I'm kind of bouncing around, but method to my madness. Trying to see where my good lines are going to be here. And I think I got a good idea of where my nice white uplight will be along this arm. I might lay in some white here before I go on to my next layer of colors. Okay, let's get up around this fingers. My light peach is just about ready to be replaced. It's getting to the end of its usefulness. I think I can get a couple more turns out of it, but it's getting to the point where I might need to break out my new one. Again, I'm just kind of following the fingers here. I definitely need to put some 1092 up here in the fingers. They're too light, and I didn't quite get enough in there. I think I got a little ahead of myself. Sugar's over there doing something. Sugar! Where's that Gretel? Oh, it's got to be Gretel. Sugar's my older kitty. She doesn't do much. It's got to be Gretel over there making noise, getting into something she's not supposed to, because Sugar wouldn't do that. She's a good girl. Okay, again, I'm going to get around this hand just with a nice light layer. I definitely need to come back into my fingers with some 1092. Those are those knuckle lines I put in there. I didn't get enough of my nectar in here. I don't know how. I must probably because I was jumping around too much and running my mouth. Okay. Come back down here a little bit. So, looks like I'm just kind of pulling that color out a little bit. See what I need to adjust. Yep. Let me grab my white really quick because I'm going to put in this. I know it looks really, like on the camera, it looks like I got a lot of white right in here. But there is some light peach in there. It's just really hard to see on camera. And of course, the picture you're going to see is going to look a little different depending on, what device you're using. So all I'm doing is putting a really light layer of white here. Just in a very small strip. And I'm zoomed in, so of course it's probably going to look a lot wider than it is. I'm not doing a heavy layer, just a little coat, just like we did on the other side. And then I'm going to hit this edge here. For now. I'm going to put that white around the edge, up here, around the hand, and then down by the elbow. What's funny is when I was doing this, right, don't forget about this little part right here. I was like, oh my gosh, her elbows are on a table. Do I have to come up with a color palette for the table now too? Yikes. Maybe a little bit in between here in these fingers. I might put a little pink on that thumb there because it's this side of her thumb. So, be the 1019. I'm going to add a little 1019 to the back side of her thumb here. It's going to give it a little different color. And now I'm going to grab my 943 again because I definitely think I want a little more shading down here. Right around that cake. And this ribbon here. Definitely need some more color in between my leaves here. I think that might be like kind of frosting behind that berry there. We're going to have chocolate cake. Chocolate cake because I like chocolate. I only know a couple people who don't like chocolate. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's never good. How can you not like chocolate? I think that's just weird. But I like good chocolate. I don't like cheap chocolate. I like good, yummy chocolate. I find that the older I get, the pickier I get about a lot of things. And chocolate, I've always been picky about, but it's just worse now. I bought these one chocolates for my dad from this chocolatier overseas, and they're supposed to be one of the world's best chocolate truffles, and they weren't that great. I paid a lot of money for them, and I was like, pfft, I've had better chocolate. I was disappointed. They were for Christmas, and I was thinking, man, these are going to be so good. So I got him some, and then I got a sample box, for everybody to try one. So a couple $100 worth of chocolate. It's like, I don't understand what the hype was about. They weren't that great. I was so disappointed. I should have wrote him a letter and told him they tasted like crap. But I didn't. I just was like, whatever. What a bummer, though. We were all hoping for like some, you know, amazing experience. And it was like, pff, wasn't even nothing. It was a bum deal. I think I got robbed. I'm putting some finger lines in there, like I did over on the other side. Okay, that's good with that. I'm going to grab my 1092. I'm going to come up here on these fingers. I definitely want some more color on my fingers here. My finger lines, I'm going to do those first so don't forget them. What a total bummer, though. You spend all that money on some fancy chocolate, and it's like, yuck. You know, you're expecting something just marvelous to happen in your mouth, and it just goes flat. You're like, what the heck? Total letdown. Sorry, I get quiet when I'm concentrating. But yeah, can you imagine? I'm like, what a bummer. So for Father's Day this year, I opted not to get something too crazy for my dad. Because what do you get the guy who like has everything? I mean, he doesn't have everything, but he's like really hard to buy for. So I ordered him this t-shirt. It was a custom made t-shirt. And it says sarcastic comment loading. I know he'll wear that. It's just a plain black t-shirt with white letters on it. And like a, you know, your computer when it's thinking puts up that buffering sign. That's what it has on it. It says sarcastic comment loading. I think he'll like that. And if he doesn't, well, whatever. What can you do? You know, I tried. And he doesn't care about gifts. He's like me. I just, birthdays and stuff, I just, nah. It's just another day to me anymore. I've never been one to be a big celebrator of my birthday. My older sister, Angie, though, she'll make sure you know it's her birthday 2 months before it's her birthday. I shouldn't be ratting on her like that, but she always likes to tell everybody her birthday's on the 4th of July. It's not. Her birthday's on July 7th. But she likes to make sure everybody knows. And she's 57 now, I think. Or she's gonna be. But she hasn't changed. She still makes sure everybody knows. And then she says, oh, I don't care about my birthday. I'm like, yes, you do. If you didn't care, you wouldn't bring it up every chance you got. I'm like, good Lord. She's always been that way since we were kids, though. Angie's very into fashion and clothes, and she's, her hair, her nails, she's Miss Fancy Pants. And I'm the opposite. So I got 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest, of course. And then here I am, the tomboy, military. Kind of funny, actually. I've never been one that even gave a hoot about fashion. I just never was. I just was never my thing. Okay, now we're going to take our 140 and we're going to put that nice layer of 140 in. Just a light layer. Remember, don't go too heavy yet. We're just kind of blending to get our feel for our color palette. And don't forget, you go over your white areas. Those little areas where you put the white in. Kind of want to hit that so it's not stark white. And pay attention to where you put your white pencil in the center there to add your that nice light effect. You should be able to feel it when you bump into it with your pencil as you're blending. And that's when you know where to stop. So I'm just kind of working the colors here a little bit, just like we did on that other side. I'm not doing anything different, really. I think I got a little more shading at that elbow there, which that's okay, because it is on the table and the cake is kind of blocking it, so that's all right. Working from my leaves out towards that white area, pulling that color out, blending as I go, of course. And again, I'm just using really light pressure, nothing heavy, because you're probably going to want to make adjustments after you get this in there. And you see where you're at, how much more color you want to put in or take away. Starting to almost look like skin. I can still see the grain of my paper, so I know I'm not burnishing. You know when you're burnishing, though, because your pencil slides over your paper so easy. Again, I'm just kind of pulling that color out into that center, working it around my white space there. So I don't want too much white. Okay, I'm going to kind of go up here to the hand, working over those lines I put in. I was hoping my wrist lines would have been a little more perfect, but they're not. You can't get perfection out of me. I don't think anything I've ever done has been perfect in my life. Except for when I cook. I'm a really good cook. I know so many people that can't cook. And they have kids. I don't understand. How can you have kids and you can't cook? What do you feed your kids? Fast food and microwave meals? How do you not know how to cook? And I mean, I'm not talking macaroni and cheese in a box. I'm talking home-cooked, real food. I will never understand. I have a friend that cannot cook. She can burn boiled water. I'm like, you had 3 kids. What did your kids grow up eating? I'm like, oh my Lord. How do you not know how to cook? It just floors me. I mean, I get it. Not a lot of guys know how to cook, but a bachelor can at least make himself a meal. Most guys I know can make burgers and steaks or salads and sandwiches. I mean, my friend, I don't think she even know how to cook a grilled cheese sandwich without burning it. It's like, how do you do that? How do you not? Is it just you're not inclined? I mean, anybody can cook. It's not hard. But she really can't. She's terrible. And I tried to teach her once, and I got laughing so hard she got upset at me. I was like, sorry. I was like, I just don't understand. Did your mom not teach you how to cook? It was just weird to me. I mean, I grew up in a family where everybody knew how to cook. Everybody, all the boys, the guys, everyone. We all knew how to cook. So it's really weird when you come from a family that has great cooks and you see somebody who can't cook at all. You're like, it just blows you away. It does me anyway. It's shocking to me. I'm like, Wow. I'm not big on fast food, so I'd rather have a home-cooked meal. I mean, I can even make pizza from scratch, like homemade dough, biscuits. How can you not do that? How do you not know how? It just weird to me. Okay, so I got my nice light layer in there, and I think I'm going to grab my 927. Nope, I lied. I'm going to grab my white. I'm going to go over that little area of white and just put a little more in there. Just a little bit. Just to keep my white white. And I'm only doing the center and then up here on the hand a little bit. There's a little bit on that finger, I think, right in the center. Just kind of putting a line in the center there. Just giving a little bit of white. Because when you hit it with that light peach, it's still going to stay a lighter shade of light peach. Okay. I went a little bit faster on this side too, though. So I apologize if I was not as slow as I was last. Actually, yep. Light peach. So I'm going to give another blend of this light peach. I'm going over that white right along the edge there. And I'm doing a slower blend, as you can see. But I'm still not pushing hard. I'm just very lightly blending these colors. So I can see where I'm at. And then again over this white line. So you can see, you still see the white, but it's a really pale, paler than your light peach. And get in my fingers. Which I think this time I got a good amount of that nectar in there to give it that peach tone I was looking for. And I still may need to make a few adjustments. Again, I know I'm not pushing hard. I know it looks funny because my pencil is short, but just kind of blend in those edges where I put that nectar in. And you should be able to see that here as soon as I move my hand. Get around the base here, these fingers. Okay. So there you could, now you could definitely see, I'm gonna work this bit right here. Again, I'm just blending my light peach with all the shading and undertones I put in there. And a still light layer, I'm not pushing hard. I don't need to do that. I'm going around the edge here. And I did go over that white area. So you can see it still looks white, but really it's just a paler shade of that light peach. Same with the fingers. Okay, I'm going to come down here in between my leaves. Work that edge again. I'm definitely going to have to bust out my other pencil. This one's getting too short. And I can't really sharpen it. I have a short little sharpener, but nah. I might sharpen it. We'll see. We'll see. I have a little bin upstairs. It's full of little bits and pieces of pencils, and they get really short. And I throw them in this star-shaped little plastic container I have. When it gets full, I'm going to pour it full of like a resin and let it set up and have like a little paperweight. Oh, that'd be cute, huh? It's about a quarter of the way full. Still plenty of room in there to add some more. Okay, I'm just going to hit that edge. And then that edge at the bottom where my elbow is. Can't forget that. Okay, now for my pale yellow, my 140. I'm going to hit that edge. Just like we did over here on that side. I'm going to give a nice blend. I'm still not using heavy pressure, but again, at this point, you should start feeling your colors move around a little bit easier as you're blending. Making sure to try to get a nice even blend with your colors. And you should still be seeing your under colors, your shades and your lines that you put in. And you can see I am going over that white area. So it's not going to stay like stark white. It's going to be kind of a fleshy. But this color works so good when you're blending flesh. Again, I'm just kind of getting in between my leaves here. Around that edge. I'm going to work this wrist area. So you can see my lines in my wrist really good. Those are the ones I put in with that 943. So again, I'm just blending those edges into the center, trying to get a nice even. But I'm not burnishing yet, so I still have some room to make some adjustments if I need to. Okay, I'm going to come up around the hand. Yeah, see how sharp that line is? It's not what I wanted, but I'll try to fix that if I can. That's going to be a tricky one to kind of fix there. Get up in my fingers a little bit. And that thumb that I added that extra little bit of pink on the base of that thumb, or on the underside of that thumb, because the thumb is kind of flipped. So I wanted to add a little bit of a pink. I didn't add a whole lot, just a little bit, just to give it a little contrast. So you could tell it's like the underside of her finger. So it looks like I need to add a little bit of my white in here. And then I might have to come back in with my light peach and do some more blending around my edges, which is probably going to burnish my page. So I need to make sure I get this white exactly where I want it. So what I'm doing is I'm lightening up some areas where I think it's just a little too dark or a little too orangey. So I'm just kind of pulling a little white in there. And again, I'm still using a light touch. I'm just basically more moving the color out of the way. Because I want it to have that flesh tone, but I don't want it to be too dark. So again, this is the stage where if you're going to make corrections, now is the time. Otherwise, you got to live with what you've laid down. Because it's really hard to pull all that color back out. So kind of just add in some white to lighten up some of those areas where I think it's just too much. And you always tell, like I said, that I'm not pushing hard because my tip is so long. And these are Prismacolors, so you know I would just snap that tip right off. You can hear the wind blowing outside. The leaves on the trees are moving. I'm going to see if I can fix this by putting some white over it. A little bit. I was able to manipulate it just a little bit, but it's still going to be that weird line right there. Oh, well, I'm going to have to live with that. Okay. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to take my eggshell around my white edges really quick and just kind of give those edges a brush up with some of that eggshell. Make sure that those white lines don't look like screaming stark white. I think that's pretty good. Now for 1068, I'm going to put a little bit on my 1068. Just kind of blending that edge with the 1068. I'm going to work down here a little bit, okay? Because this has a gray, it works really good to blend, but it also will lighten, so I'm just adding a little bit, certain spots. I think that's going to be good. Okay, I think it's looking pretty good. I don't think I need that other color, so I think I'm just going to go right for my light peach. Let's see what happens. When you blend this out, you're really going to probably feel that you're burnishing your page. So you're going to get some pencil dust. Just brush it or blow it away. I usually have a little brush that I use, but it's off to my side somewhere. Going down around that white part. Ugh. You could definitely see that I'm going along that edge, but you could definitely tell I'm burnishing my page because I am getting some pencil dust. Ooh, something on my TV. There's some cursing and somebody's fighting. I'm like, alrighty then. So you can see how that color just changes a little bit when you start to burnish. That's what you can hope for, where your color lines blend into each other and kind of give you an all over uniform look, but you still got your areas of shading. And again, I may come back in at the end and do some more details on these hands, but for now, I'm kind of happy. Give these fingers a once over, although my fingers are looking pretty good. I can still see my little bits of light in the center. I still see my knuckle lines. And I can still see that weird line in my hand. I can still see the light area in the center there, like right where the light's hitting it, where I'm going over it now. Okay. What do you think, peeps? Can you see that? So we got a nice uniform color on both hands. And, oops, I missed a spot right there by the fork. Ooh, I'll have to come back in there and snaggle that up. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4 exposed fingernails. So just for fun, let's do it. What color? Since I got my brush out, let's do... I got this fancy brush. Claire recommended this one. It's got a really fine tip. I only bought the one because, like I said, I'm not a big painter. But it's a water brush. You fill it full of water. And then you can just squeeze. And it lets out just enough into your paint. Let's go with this really cool copper color, huh? See what we get. I might have to test it off to the side first before I put it down, because I don't know how dark this is going to be. I've not used these, so this is a first. I'm not a painter, so no laughing. Okay, you can laugh a little bit if I mess up, but just a little bit. Okay, you can laugh a lot, because I'll laugh. I'm nervous. My hand's probably going to start shaking. Thought I would do her. Okay, let's go for it. Let's see what happens here. Can I be really careful and put some fingernails in here? Give her some blingy fingernails. What do you think? Now, these are those watercolor paints by KJ Design. She makes them by hand. And they are so blingy. Ooh, that looks kind of cool, huh? I mean, they are like bling bling. And I like a little bling in my artwork. Okay. I don't want to put too much on there. And now this takes a minute to dry. It doesn't dry right away or real fast like your Poscas do or your gel pens. So patience before you go back and wipe your hand over it. I don't want to get too much on there. Yep, see, now I think her fingernail looks like it's sticking up off her finger. Might have to go back and fix that one. But, oh, I don't have a paper towel. Oh, well. So I'm going to squeeze some water out and use my hand to clean this off. And then I'm going to do something really cool. This is a technique I've done before. So I'm going to use this gold. I have one of these, oops, I don't want to get water on my picture. I'm going to use one of these gold. Oop. Now I put too much water in there. Good Lord. See? You win some, you lose some, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around here where you can see her hair. Remember we used our gold pencil to give her some gold shimmer in her hair? I am going to put a little bit of gold in her hair with these fabulous paints. I got a little too much water on this one, so I'm trying to squeeze it off, but it's really hard. So I'm just mixing. And I got this little case, by the way, on Amazon. It was like $5. And it came with all those little trays. Not that I make paint, but it came with all those little extra trays. So I tend to wipe my paint off on the side of them right now so that I'm not wasting it. I can always come back and use it because it'll dry. It's just watercolors. Just add water. So let's see. Oh, that too much there. I'm trying to see where I'm at. Yep. All right. See if I can add just some little touches. I won't want to get my hand in that. So I'm just going to add little dashes, little touches of some gold highlights. I know you could barely see it, but they're there. I'm just going to put some really cool little bits of gold in her hair. Just giving her some extra shimmer. You don't have to do this. You can use whatever you want. You can use your gold gel pen, but I think this watercolor paint blends better with the pencil. I'm just kind of giving her some fun little highlights. I think it's really going to kind of stand out in the light. I don't know. Maybe it'll make it look terrible. But I've done this before on other pictures with, like I said, gel pen. And it looks really cool. The trick is to make it very random. You don't want to add, like, too much. And I am staying with the way the hair flows. And again, I'm not a painter, so be nice. Be picking on me. Okay? I think that's enough. I'll put my... I could have put some down in her curls. Maybe later. I'm done painting. I'm done. Done painting. Let me see if you can see that. Can you see it? Can you see the gold in her hair? If I turn it right. I don't know. I'm trying to... I know it looks like long dashes, but really it blends in better. See, when the light hits it, you can actually see the paint strokes, but when it's just sitting, trying to make it so you can, it just looks weird on camera. But it looks really cool in person. So if the light is just right, it almost blends in with the hair. So you can do those. You can add those in. You can leave them off, whatever you want to do. But that is basically it for the face and the hands and the neck. You can, I will come back in later at the end and do some very fine detail work on the hands as well as the overall picture itself. So I think the next part that I'm going to do, which is scary, I might do the shirt. So get your greens ready. It's looking like it's going to be farmer green. John Deere green, maybe. What do you think? I think that'd be good. But some different shades of green. You'll see. All right. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.